This is the sharpest Leica M lens out there, available today. This Leica M lens has the best contrast, center sharpness, and corner sharpness, free of lens flaring, distortion, or chromatic aberration. This lens is the choice of Leica's chief optical designer for what he would want to use himself. The 35mm APO Summicron-M f2.0 ASPH. It's the top-of-the-line M lens, and I'll explain why. It was announced in 2018, but the release was delayed until the next year because they were so difficult to produce. Waitlists were 1 to 2 years when it was first released, but it is available now to purchase brand new. In designing this lens, Leica set out to produce the very best possible lens in the smallest package, regardless of cost. For the body, they started out with the 35mm Summicron design, which is legendary and compact on its own. This is a very small lens given its capability. It's discreet and fits so well on an M body. Inside, they stuffed in 10 lens elements in 5 groups made of high-quality glass. 3 elements have aspherical surfaces. 6 of the elements help provide apochromatic correction, which is rarely found in a shorter focal length such as a 35, and also includes floating lens elements. The glass elements are hand-assembled and technically difficult to make, which leads to its high price and initial limited production. But all of this comes together to make the sharpest, most lifelike images. The MTF charts for this lens are unreal, showing very little fall-off in sharpness towards the corners, and very little distortion or vignetting. On top of all this, they packed in another feature, close focus, which I'll talk about later. In person, I have to say that this lens looks great and feels great. It's about the size of a regular 35mm Summicron, and it's smaller than the 35mm Summilux FLE, and it weighs only 320 grams. The aperture ring has just the right amount of clickiness. It ranges from 2.0 all the way down to f16. But I would not stop all the way down to f16 on a digital camera, but I could consider doing that with my film MP. The focus ring is smooth and it does have a focus tab, but it is still slightly stiff to rotate, but I expect this will loosen up over time as I use it more. The lens hood is screw-on and looks so sexy. It has this unique squared-off design that looks both modern and classic at the same time, and it adds very little bulk to the lens. And it's not just for looks. This lens hood was specifically designed to prevent stray light from hitting the lens. And it also comes with a metal lens cap, which fits over the hood. This fits so well on the M11, a great balance. It's small and discreet, so it's great for street photography and travel photography. It's not heavy and it does not cause the camera to tip forward when setting it down. It also looks great on the Leica MP, and that's going to be fun shooting film with this lens next time I get the chance. Let's go into some sample images that I took myself on day 1. I'm not a photographer and these compositions are nothing special. This is just to show off some real-life images with this lens on the M11. And again, these images might not show up clearly on YouTube, but these photos were sharp on my computer screen. I was slightly concerned these images might come out to be too clinical, but that's not the case. They still have character, especially when shot wide open like this at f2. These are uncropped images, and I barely adjusted them in Lightroom, brought up the contrast and vibrance just slightly, and I think the colors look great. Then I stopped down to f5.6 to give more depth of field, and everything looks sharp, but still very lifelike. This lens can really produce a real-life image. Now I'll talk about the other special feature. This lens can focus up close as 0.3 meters. And that's even closer than the 35 Summilux or the 50 Summilux, which I believe can only go down to 0.4 meters. That may not sound like a big difference, but 0.3 meters is much closer than the standard 0.7 to 1 meter that's standard on most lenses. You just activate it by rotating the focus ring further clockwise. There's a small detent at 0.7, but then you can go past it all the way down to 0.3 meters. And the focus action slows down at this point and spreads out to allow for finer focus. Past 0.7, you cannot use the rangefinder patch anymore, so you need to rely on the live view screen or use a VisoFlex to focus. But this allows you to get really close to the subject, and it essentially turns this lens into a macro lens. Here are two examples that I took. I was able to get extremely close to the flowers, but still keep focus. And at the same time, it turns this into a bokeh monster, even though it's only f2.0. By getting extra close to the subject and having the background far away, you get this extremely creamy fall off and blurred out background, almost like a Noctilux. Here's an example from Leica's website shot at 0.7, which is the normal closest minimum focusing distance for most lenses. And then coming into 0.3 meters, it just turns the image into something else entirely. And with a 60 megapixel sensor, you can crop in even further from here if you want. Opening up a fresh new Leica lens is always exciting, never gets old. My lens is a brand new copy with a production date of July 30, 2024. I always try to keep the packing in good condition in case I need to resell it. The gray outer box, the inner box, and the documentation. The box is the standard size, and inside is the lens manual, like a brochure, testing certificate, and registration information. I already registered this online, and that gave me an extra 12 months of warranty. And it comes with this Napa leather case, which you get with all M lenses. And inside it's wrapped in plastic, as always. I use the leather case sometimes to store my lenses at home, but I don't travel with it to avoid damaging the leather. And don't forget to look all the way at the bottom. There's a trapdoor with a hidden compartment that contains the finishing ring. This is installed on the front of the lens to protect the threads in case you do not want to use the metal lens hood. But I'm using the lens hood because it looks so good and it protects the front of the lens. And the threads match up so precisely, it stops screwing in at the exact right position. This lens is for a person who wants an extremely sharp image down to the corners, lifelike reproduction, and top performance in an M lens. This can be your only 35mm lens, or you could pair it up with a character lens such as the 35mm Summicron steel rim. For me, this replaced my 35mm Summicron FLE version 2. This one has even closer focusing than that, but the thing that pushed me over the edge was the small, more compact form factor and the lack of chromatic aberration. I often shoot outdoors in high contrast situations, and the aberrations were just getting too annoying. I could always just try to fix the purple fringing in Lightroom, but I just don't want to bother with excessive post-production. At some point, excessive editing just makes the image look fake. I don't like to spend too much time editing, but with this lens I can get a great real-life image with very little editing. Let me know in the comments, could this be your only lens?